Hey there, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Podcasting Badass. I'm your host, Sober Steve, the podcast guy. And today we're going to be going over 4 tips and tricks that you want to make sure you do when you're taking a pod break or a break in your podcasting routine and schedule. So it's an important lesson that I had to put into practice more recently, and we'll get into that. And it's something to make sure you don't pod fade when you go away, because that's the biggest thing that we risk when we take a break. It isn't necessarily that we'll lose some listeners, because we will lose some listeners. It's just a matter of the fact if someone's used to for your show week after week, and then you go away for a couple of weeks, people are going to fill their time with something else. It's just natural. But the biggest problem that podcasts face is that they don't actually come back, or they come back, but not as into it as they did before. And then when the listeners don't skyrocket back up to where they were right away, that's when they give up. But either way, biggest thing when you take a break is that's the number one sign that you are at risk for potentially pod fading. And we want to avoid pod fading or just stopping your podcast without any sort of ending or notice, all costs. So here's how you can avoid that. The first bit of personal stories I'll give you is an update. If you've been listening, this is a topic that's close to home, is because we recently in Florida, where I live in Sarasota, we're in direct of Hurricane Milton and the trickle effect of what happens after a hurricane, because it's not just necessarily the night of the storm, the devastation afterwards and recovering from. I've learned that can be really difficult and trying. And that led to me having to take a few weeks off from my normal podcasting routine. It was a option of either sacrificing a couple episodes of this or sacrificing my clients' content, and that was not an option for me. So I did take a few weeks off. I did post about it. I did do with the little post here, and we'll get into kind of what I did in the moment, as well as also just celebrating the fact that I came back, because I would not leave you all hanging. But we also have another great handful of episodes on the way. So when you are having something happen, catastrophe happens, life happens, and you are no longer able to show up for your podcast, the best scenario is you're able to see it coming in advance, and there's a month or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long, a couple months in advance that you need to or want to take this break. You can work up to it, avoiding it altogether for your listeners, thanks to the ability to create content in advance, batch it. Like I go over with, record 3 or 4 or 5 episodes all in 1 or 2 sittings, schedule it all out for release, and you can keep on releasing the content while you are on your break. You can even schedule all the social and media content. I know some people the auto schedulers will hurt you if it's either use an auto scheduler to take a break or don't take a break at all. The answer is use the auto scheduler. Using those tools, you should be able to take a week or 2 weeks off easily without your listeners noticing, if you have the ability and the foresight and the planning to be able to make sure that you can have that content batched and go. Quite regularly take a week off from my shows where no one will notice, because I'm still having the content come. I'm still liking and commenting as things happen, but the actual posting, writing, creating, processing, all of that's already done in advance. It's podcasting magic that you can use if you're able to plan in advance. Step 1, obviously, try and plan for your breaks. They're not breaks for your audience the way that they're breaks for you. However, occasionally that can happen, like a hurricane. You can only plan so much with a couple of days in advance and then having to recover afterwards. In a situation, you also have the option to re-release old content. If you have more than 25 to 50 episodes, especially once you hit over 100 episodes, it's a very dedicated listener to find your show over 100 episodes and have listened to all of the episodes. I love to imagine that's what happens. And there are days where I know someone finds the show because they will download all 200 something episodes of one of my shows. But that is rare and few and far in between compared to people that will find your show wherever you are releasing and then just stick with you week after week without ever going back. And so it happens. A great way that you can take these breaks if you don't have time to create brand new content is take existing content, throw an introduction at the beginning saying why you chose this piece of content, why you're revisiting it, why it still matters today and is relevant. And there you get a 1 or 2 introduction that you have to record. The rest of it's old material that you're going to reintroduce to your audience in an exciting way. And you also get the chance then again, where it's a very small amount of work you're putting up front to be able to then take the break. While you're doing either of these methods, you also want to make sure with tip number 3, no matter how you're taking the break, even in a situation like mine where I wasn't able to plan, and it was a newer podcast, this show specifically, so I wasn't able to move into my vaults for episodes like I did for a Queer and Sober one that had over 200 episodes. That was very easy for me because I just took the 2 vault episodes I created, mixed them all together, and had old content become new content. But what I did make sure I did was let you know, my listeners, as soon as I knew. So what I mean by that is that if a month in advance that you're going to be taking a month off or 2 weeks, let your listeners know, build it into the format of your episodes leading to in the beginning of the show as well as the end of the show, announcing that there's going to be a break. That way, as people are listening week after week, if they're used to waking up every Tuesday morning to your show and it's not there on Tuesday morning, if you let them know 1, 2, even 3 weeks up in advance, because they listen to the episodes that you're going to be taking that vacation or that trip or that thing's happening, they're going to feel like they're on the insiders club for knowing it happened already because they're already listening and they won't worry about you and they'll know you're coming back. So it's a win-win situation when you're able to let your listeners know in advance when the break is happening. I recommend kind of the ratio is a 1-to-1. If you are taking a 1 week break, let them know at least 1 episode in advance. If you're taking a 2 week break, try and spend 2 episodes leading up to it, mentioning that you're going to be taking a break. If it's a month-long break, 4 episodes. Hopefully by this point, you get how a 1-to-1 ratio works. Having that ratio of letting your listeners know in advance multiple times. Hey, I'm going to be gone for a little bit. It's okay. I'm okay. We're okay. The podcast will be back. I promise. Makes them feel safe, makes them aware of it, and makes them more likely to return to you when you come back. All things you want. So don't just go away and just figure out that no one will notice anyway, because my numbers aren't what I dream of them being one day. So I let the people listening now know where I went. That's not a great mindset to have for the people that already know and love you. Make sure you're letting them know what's going on with your podcasting. So announcing your break to the audience. One thing, if you can't do it with the build up, in this case with the hurricane, again, that chance to let you all know in advance that I would be having this hiatus. But what I did do at that point, as soon as I realized that I was going to be on for a couple of weeks, I did get behind the microphone and spend all of 1 minute to explain the situation that I was taking a hiatus, uploaded it as an episode. So people who are already subscribed and following got the episode. If you listen to it, you already know what I mean. And if you didn't listen to it and you're like, where is it now? It's because you found me after this all happened. And so what I did that episode, and I am deleting that episode when I upload this episode because that was a message for my listeners who were already listening to my show. I was taking a break. I don't need to keep that 1.5 minute episode in my feed so that people 6 months, 8 months, 5 years down the road will go back and hear it. So at that point, that's when you do episodes placeholder. I'd be right back like I did. And then when you are back, deleted, it's like it never happened. That's another great way of making sure that you're letting the people who matter know without making it in your podcasting history resume forever and ever. You want to make sure that you are using your communication skills to be able to announce the break to your audience, not only in the podcasting app, but also on your social media. Make sure that they also know on social, post on social, let them know. And finally, you want to make sure that you have a clear return date and that you stick with it. Yes, is the most important part about taking a break, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is that it is just a break, that you're not pod fading away. Because most people don't say, hey, I'm going to disappear into oblivion. They say, take a quick break, I'll be right back. And then they don't come back. So don't be those people. Know when you are taking a break, even for an emergency, that you are taking a X number of weeks or days break, and then stick to plan for it. Hold yourself accountable. Let your listeners know, let your followers know, let your friends and family know. That way, if that date happens and you're not coming back, everyone's gonna be like, what's going on? You have to get back into the studio. You have to get back into the content. You have to hit record. because you have people waiting for you and you don't want to fade away into oblivion, and you want to hold yourself accountable and be there for them, because when you tell them, I will be back at this date, they'll be waiting for you and you don't want to let them down. So you're creating for yourself a situation where you will win, they will win, and your podcast will win because it will keep going because you have that clear return date and you're going to stick to it. So with that, if you are able to make sure, best case scenario, you batch the content, backup plan is using old content and polishing up as new content. Combine those with your clear return date and all the other tips into this episode. And when you take a break, you will come back, and most of your listeners will hopefully be back waiting for you with big breath and open arms. So is an episode for today. We are back with 4 brainstorming sessions in the works. I'm so excited for all 4 of these episodes. You got 4 exciting potential podcasters getting ready to get behind the mic and share what their future podcast might look like, while I get to coach them through how you might be able to apply their tools and tips and tricks into making your own shows launch or grow even better. Keep on podcasting.